So welcome to Ralph Reichert, president of Oban Shafts, long-term friend of Precision Golf, and maker of my own iron shaft and fairway wood shaft. So not a lot of new products right now, but a very, very interesting new finish to the CT line.
Yes. So we, the very popular line of the CT series, which we make in 100 gram, 115 gram, and 125. Basically 7 flexes across each one of those weights. So it gives a fitter the ultimate to be able to dial a player in. And flex and weight have a major impact on dispersion, and that's where this probably leads against anyone else for the ability to custom fit somebody. So our thought was, we've always done it in chrome, which has been very popular. But there's 2 things that that we wanted to take a look at. One of them is materials and differentiate by materials and how they affect performance, design along with that. But then from a standpoint of cosmetic or the way it looks, more and more companies are using satin finishes in their heads, and they like to pair it maybe with something satin. The problem with satin finish to date is they tend to get beat up in a golf bag because it's a coating. So we explored the area of technical finishes. Technical robust finishes is the way Suzanne has coined it. So what we've done on the silk finish, which is basically a satin finish, is instead of doing this with a coating, we make the shaft the same way. We chromium plate it first, and then we take ceramic beads, put the shaft in a chamber, and blast it with ceramic beads, much like sand blasting or glass blasting, except those tend to be very aggressive. We did ceramic bead blasting because it's hollow and it's less aggressive on the finish, and it just kind of buffs it into a satin. Very durable, and we love the finish. So much that when we got feedback from our fitters, they loved it equally, and we just, instead of doing a test rollout, we're rolling it out with all 3 weights.
It's a fascinating tactile element to it, even though it's kind of got that smoothness you'd associate with a straight chrome shaft rather than the brushed, which a lot do. But as you say, the problem with the coatings is they just don't last. And they look great in the first couple of rounds, and then where it contacts the bag or gets a little bit of chip for another club head, they just mark up really, really quickly. Whereas this one has that kind of smoothness of the satin element to it, silk element to it. It's even smoother. But yeah, it's a fascinating kind of feel to it, and just tones it down a little bit. It's not too different, but it's like a matte. Matte would be the kind of the best description. It might be hard to see on the video, but yeah, it's a really interesting feel.
Yeah. There's an upcharge obviously to it because we're taking that existing and adding elements to it, but it gives you another opportunity to make your set unique and differentiate. And if you're basically buying our shafts, because we tend to be the most expensive in steel, you're all in on performance, and you're all in on making your set the optimal. And then the other thing that we've highlighted, because as we were coming up with new materials for this, and this is available online as well, but we had our tour reps take a look at wedge options. Our fitters have been doing this since we've come out with the CT line, and the cool thing about it is the 100, 115, 125. There are some fitters that say, okay, we're going to have you in a 100 and 115. We're going to put you in the same weight. So your 115 set will put your sand in your lob wedge at 115. But then there's others that say, hey, we're using 125 gram, but we're just going to make it just slightly softer, so it's got a little more feel and use for touch. So we were reaching out to our fitters and our tour reps and say, okay, how do you determine what you're going to do? So we took kind of that bucket of knowledge and gave some direction for it. So what kind of tempo you have, because all of our fitters are working with tempo, and whether you're a smooth tempo or medium tempo or aggressive tempo, this is sort of the guide that we would use to be able to fit it in. Now, like everything that we do, and that's sort of the fitting funnel that we've always used. When people ask us what's the best shaft for me, we say, tell you what, it's a fitting funnel. We'll start you on top based on what you're using, what you like, and what your tempo is. But as you narrow down and dial it in, you go to our fitters, and it's why we deal exclusively through fitters, so that you're going to get the optimal with the way your swing is, not only tempo, transition, how you handle weight, how you react to the weight and the feel and the flex of a shaft, the profile of a shaft, and it gives you that opportunity.
I think that's the one thing that I've played these shafts for a number of years now, and what I've noticed throughout the set is how consistent the flight is, and by that I mean you don't get a short iron flaring up and a long iron coming out flat. It's the pitch of flight is based on the loft, but the stability of the flight through the set is unlike a shaft that I've ever played before, and I think that, as you say, you might get someone who's a kind of quieter profile, the same weight suits through into the wedges, or say tendency to go up in weight and go down in flex to keep the feedback and not get it to feel boardy. But the shafts aren't that anyway, but it's giving a kind of a start point and a guide to the consumer as well to understand it too. I think that's an interesting one. And
Japanese steel extrusion, the way we handle temperature throughout the manufacturing process does make it, our feeling is the most consistent, the best shaft in golf.
And I think it's something that as products, there'll be some new products coming out which we've talked about that we can't talk about yet, but there's some really fascinating things that you guys are doing from a technological point of view and a design standpoint, but a structure, kind of material standpoint as well. And I think that's something that we're always looking for, particularly this week when we're coming out to the show, is saying, right, who's actually innovating and doing something different? And actually this week's been interesting from that. There are a couple of different things happening, but I think that's something to look out for in the future when you're looking at Oban as a product and as a manufacturer. They're doing things that a little bit differently, which is always great to see, because if it's different, then that means it's going to be unique and it's going to be some fascinating stuff coming out soon. So keep an eye out for future videos with this gentleman here and some great products coming out.
Thank you, Simon.